Alright, hello and welcome everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about Garuda, who is an incredibly difficult Warframe to acquire, but is not incredibly useful. So today, we're going to be talking about why Garuda is on the struggle bus, and hopefully how to get her off of it. But before we talk about her abilities and such, let's go over the build I've been using so far, and why there's only one forma in her at current. So, there's only one forma in this Warframe at current because she just isn't useful. I put 1 V polarity into Garuda just so I could, test some builds and see, go into the abilities and be like, what's useful here? It turns out, none of it. None of it is useful. That is because a lot of things just seem like they are hooked up in weird places that don't make sense, and we're going to go over the lot of that. So, let's explain her abilities. We have Dread Mirror, Blood Altar, Bloodletting, and Seeking Talons. And we're just going to show this on some enemies who have their AI paused so I can explain how all of these abilities work. So, we'll jump these guys out here. First and foremost, we're going to talk about her 1, Dread Mirror. This is probably her most useful ability. So say I have this Corrupted Crewman right here. Hit 1, and I get a shield out of him, and also I get this nice little orb on top of the shield. The shield lasts for a limited amount of time, but the orb will not disappear unless you use it or it gets nullified. Use your 1, tap it on an enemy, you get this shield, very nice. You can hold your 1, and then charge up the orb, and throw it at enemies. That also, very nice. Incredible, not usually that useful. Otherwise, okay, that's kind of exemplifying the point I'm about to make. Otherwise, the other thing about this ability is that if you can get an enemy below 35% health, you can use it on them and it will instant kill them. Which is really not useful at all, because as illustrated by the Pandero, usually an enemy goes from 100% HP to dead in 1 bullet in Warframe, so that little threshold doesn't make much sense, but we'll rotate back around to that in a moment. So for now, let's get rid of this. Her 2 is Blood Altar, where you put an enemy up on shticks, and then in this little AoE, they heal you. The base radius for this heal is 6 meters, which is absolutely pitiful. And I can't really say that the healing is too amazing either, because it's just not very fast. If it was much easier to stack these AoEs on top of each other, because you can cast it on multiple enemies at once, this ability might be fine. But as it stands right now, this radius would need to be, base 20 meters to make that realistically a thing you can do and also keep fighting enemies in the way that Garuda would. So because she has to use her 1, which leaps to the enemy, so oftentimes if you use your 2, you now have to leap away out of your 2's radius, which is not useful at all. And then besides that, we have her 3. Her 3 will sacrifice 50% of your HP to give you 25% of your energy at base. This ability is fine. It makes it so that you kind of have to build Garuda weird. I've built her with Quick Thinking, Prime Flow, and Steel Fiber instead of Vitality, because having a ton of health doesn't really do you much good whenever you're sacrificing a percentile of it to get energy, but it makes for an interesting build, I suppose, in terms of how you're building out your survivability, and works just fine. I don't really have any huge complaints about this, other than that I don't feel the need to spend my energy on anything except for using it as a health sink. And then, finally, we have her 4. So her 4 is this slow charge up. You throw out these spines, and they hit enemies. They don't do a great deal of damage, as you can see by it barely killing that fodder enemy. But what this 4 does do is it makes it much easier to proc slash on enemies. And by make it much easier, I mean if you're at 200% strength, it actually forces slash. So we get all these enemies in this little zone, hit them, and then you'll see that I proc a lot of slash with any weapon whenever I'm shooting the enemies. So that's kind of nice. That's a good thing. That's what the M above their head means. It makes it so that you're proccing a ton of slash on enemies. That is sort of useful. It'd be pretty good if you didn't have this really long charge up ability, but it has a good outward range, so that's kind of fine. It's a really slow ability that is more often than not definitely just going to get you killed, more so than anything else, especially if you have enough enemies where it would be worthwhile to use it. So, now, let's talk about some changes that I think would make this all work as opposed to the kind of not that it does right now. Because some of the choices kind of just don't make sense here in terms of what her abilities do and, like, what a thing that would be useful in Warframe is. Like, it feels like her abilities are just not, like, they just don't really do anything. Like, Dreadmere, it's a shield. I guess, like, having a one-way shield is not that useful because you're going to get shot from the sides and back a lot in Warframe, especially if you jump into the middle of the fray of enemies to get a Dread Mirror. One direction is not going to really help you that much. So that's kind of weirdly counterintuitive, but more so than anything else that's counterintuitive about Dread Mirror, the "this kills significantly weakened enemies instantly" part is majorly confusing. This ability doesn't do very much damage, and in Warframe, generally, if you're shooting enemies, they are going to go from 100% health to 0% health instantaneously. That's usually the MO of Warframe killing guys. So, it would make way more sense if your instant kill threshold was related to your current health as opposed to the enemy's current health, which would give you some significant synergy between Bloodletting and Dreadmere, where it would be really, really good if you're willing to take the risk. Let's say you Bloodletting twice, you get down to like 1% HP, and then you just jump in and you're instant killing fools. That would be really good at taking out, say, some like high value targets. Like hey, there's this Bombard's level 600. That's bad. I guess I'm going to Bloodletting twice and then Dreadmirror that fool and kill him instantly. That would be pretty good. That would be, like, quite enjoyable. It'd make it a very consistent ability that rewards the risk of using Bloodletting too much. That would be good. Other than that, the explosive projectile that you get from Dreadmere, I think, needs to have more interaction with the rest of your abilities to make them good. First and foremost, I think Blood Altar, whenever we're getting this, like, 44% health a second, from Dreadmere, your original, like, jump and pull scales off of the enemy you pull it out of. Blood Altar should also be increasing our orb's damage by whatever percentage of that original health we got out of it is. So, say I jump an enemy, I Dreadmirror them, and my original orb value is 4,000 health. That means whenever I'm near a Blood Altar and then stack it for multiple Blood Altars, I should be getting 44% of that original value per second I'm standing near the Blood Altar towards making that orb really huge. That would be a good additional reward for Blood Altar to be giving me. Also, Blood Altar, please for the love of God, why is this 6 meters? Absolute minimum, I think this has to be 10. Absolute minimum. Like, it should probably be somewhere between, like, 15 and 20, I think, more realistically, for this ability to, like, actually be useful. But, like, 6 is, like, absolutely hilarious. It's just a joke that you would stay within an area like that as a Warframe that mostly needs to be, like, getting in with a lot of melee stuff. This, like, if you want to heal, this pigeonholes you into just using your guns and standing still, which is, like, it's very clearly not what this Warframe should be doing. Besides that, Bloodletting, I have no real things that I would want changed with it. I think it's, like, totally fine. It would just need to be, like, rewarded more, which, of course, would be the changes to Dreadmirror that I would make. And then, finally, Seeking Talons. Seeking Talons, I feel like, is almost there. It's so close to being really, really good. So, I think one of two things needs to happen with Seeking Talons. Either, one, no charge up and it hits all the enemies in the direction you're looking at once. That, I think, would be pretty good. It might be abusable at low levels, however. So instead, I think Seeking Talons should be the second ability that can take usage of the Dreadmirror orb you get. In that, you use your one, you get your Dreadmirror orb, you get that orb up there, and you can use it for Dreadmirror to do, like, a small, like, AoE good damage, right? Or you can build it up, get that good damage going, and then charge your 4 up and do a whole big direction that takes that orb and uses it to spread the damage out between all of the attacks it's doing. I think that would be really, really good and give you a better reason to charge up Seeking Talons and use it as, like, an ultimate ability you've built up to, as opposed to using it to, I guess, bleed some guys. That would be way, way more effective, I think, at just everything. I just think that, like, it's really weird because what this kit feels like to me is that it's just like all the wires are there they're just not plugged in to the right spots, right? That's what it feels like. Like this, like Dreadmere, it looks cool, it feels cool to use, it doesn't do anything. Like, the doing anything wires are not hooked up. Blood Altar, its numbers just aren't high enough. It looks cool, it's got, like, a good effects, it just doesn't, there's just not anything there in terms of, like, the range that you would need, and it doesn't interact with your other abilities in any real meaningful way. Bloodletting is really good, but there's no payoff for lowering your health, which you'd think you would want on a Warframe that intentionally lowers its health. Like, getting the energy, that's cool and all, but we have a million ways to, like, have good energy economies as it stands, so this ability doesn't really do anything unless you're rewarding me for lowering my health in some other significant way, which would be, like, inversing the, like, weakened enemies significantly, killing them instantly. Weakening yourself makes it so you instant kill with Dreadmere would give you that good reward for lowering your health. And then finally, Seeking Talons, it feels like there's this big charge up. It looks awesome. Whenever you shoot the spines out, they're all really cool. They home in. It's cool. And then, I guess, guys bleed. Like, it doesn't do a ton of damage. Like, it's, like, mediocre damage at the absolute best. Like, it doesn't feel like it interacts with the rest of your abilities in any significant way. It's just not there. Like, all the animations, like, all, like, the feel, the sound design, all that stuff is there. But the numbers in the background and the way these abilities are linked together just feels like it's barely hanging on by a thread. And it's so weird. Like, it's so absolutely weird. And I want to make this point because, like, so this is one of the frames that, like, Pablo has like been doing, right? And it's so strange because the one thing that this Warframe is missing is the thing that, in general, Pablo has been the best at, which is making all these abilities cohere together and, like, do the Warframe thing, where you're just using all of your abilities, they're all so useful, they're all interacting with one another, and it's, like, the one thing that Garuda is, like, weirdly missing, but only barely. Only barely is Garuda missing that, like, link up of her abilities. It feels like it's so close, but not quite there. And I really hope that they make some just these small changes to Garuda to really give her the spice, right? Like, that's what I want, is that I can see the really good frame that is in Garuda, where all of your abilities are just, like, working together and you're using them all constantly, and it's very effective in, like the gameplay effectiveness sense, like where you're killing a ton of enemies, like, quite quickly. And lowering your health and getting all this energy and doing all this stuff, but it's just not there right now. And I know this video has been a lot of talking and not a whole lot of showing, so before we go, I do want to show that it's not like Garuda is unusable. It's just that she's just so close to being one of, like, the really great Warframes in the game, and I would really love to see her there. So we're going to do the level 100 test with the AI on. Also, we're going to talk about the thing that I feel like is the least important thing about Garuda that you've probably seen here, which are her Talons. They exist. You could use them. They're probably the best claws in the game, but that doesn't say a whole lot. Their stats are fine. They're not very crit-based, which I would have liked. Probably would have liked at least 15% crit. But they're okay. They're okay. I'm not going to put any Forma into these for sure, because, like, the thing that you should do instead of using these is just use any good melee weapon. So that's why they're kind of like a minor note, like here getting towards the end of the video. Because, like, just use a good melee weapon as it stands, and you'll just have a better time, unless you really want to do the Garuda claws, and then they're fine. They're okay. Like, if you really need to use her claws, you'll have an okay time with them. They work. But yeah, just use, like, an actual regular good melee weapon and you'll have a way better time. So anyway, yeah, let's show off this level 100 test, and then that'll pretty much be the end of the video, because like right now as it stands, you're pretty much using your one, and then, like, getting a good melee weapon going, and then once these ancients are dead, you can use your two to heal, but the heal isn't, like, insanely good or anything like that. Yeah, and then, yeah, I mean, this melee weapon is just good enough. You can use your 4, put it on enemies, and then, like, force some more slash procs, and that's, like, fine and all. Like, it helps a little bit against, like, heavily armored enemies. It's, like, kind of okay. But yeah, she's not unusable, but, like, most of what's happening here is that, hey, guess what, I'm using like this melee weapon more so than anything else. Yeah, like that's most of what's happening there is I'm just using a good melee weapon, and that's kind of a shame because like her powers just don't work together well enough for me to really be using her powers that much. Like I use her one because the shield's fine, I guess. It's not nearly as effective as, of course, just like being like Rhino and Naros, etc., tanky Warframes. And like her 2 is used by necessity of you like needing to heal so you can get more energy so you can keep staying alive with quick thinking with this build and all that stuff. But yeah, I see so much potential with Garuda. There's so much there, and I just hope there are some changes made to her to get her there, because it'd be a real shame if this incredible like art design, great sound, etc., all these things that I love so much about Garuda just kind of go to waste by her powers just not quite being there. That would be really sad if nothing happens to make her better. But yeah, that's unfortunately for now, that is the video on Garuda. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope Garuda gets a lot better for us all. So I will see you guys tomorrow.